All right. Well, this is a short podcast that we're doing for the local ATD Puget Sound chapter's interest group around informal learning in the purpose economy. And next week, Wednesday, April 20th, our guest speaker will be Bobby Bakshi, and he is going to be telling us about Purpose DIY. And so, Bobby, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to have this conversation next week with everyone.
Yes, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
So first of all, introduce yourself, Bobby Bakshi. What has brought you to this point where you're going to be presenting to us? Tell us a little bit of your experiences.
So quick bio, like 30 seconds, right? So really a marketing and market research background for a good 20 years. A lot of it in Fortune 500 companies, including some that we know locally. And then really had this deep desire to transition over to learning and development. Didn't even know it was called that back then. And over the last 6 to 8 years, I've really shifted my career more to focus on those areas. And that's the skill set that I really bring to bear with Purpose DIY.
Great. Okay. So, Purpose DIY. The first thing I really want to ask is purpose. What purpose seems to be something? Obviously, I formed this group last year. It's something that's on a lot of people's minds. It's being talked about a lot in the workplace and elsewhere. In your opinion, why is purpose and the whole idea of purpose and meaning and in the workplace and how we train people and how people are with one another, why do you think that this has become such a prominent idea and such an urgent one?
Thanks, Scott. It really is an urgent one. I think if you look at employee engagement and all the indexes, the great work done by Aaron Hurst with the purpose economy and the purpose centered, that he's shown that it's really those purpose-centered employees that are thriving far greater than those that aren't. And it's that type of urgency that I think is critical to bring to bear right now. This isn't just some one-off initiative. It isn't, just figuring out what a company's vision and mission is and then values and having a bunch of posters or even a really cohesive campaign that goes out, to enroll both potential employees as they're recruiting, which is usually the case, you do a lot of that with how to attract the right candidates to the jobs that you have open, how to then instill those values and purpose and connection with what the company's about with people that you have on board. And then, of course, externally as well, is how do you have that cohesive connection in every touch that you have with employees and customers? And it's a huge challenge. It's really not something that there are very few companies, I believe, that have figured that out. I think probably the number one name that comes to mind for me is Virgin Atlantic. And then, of course, there is Zappos, right, with how they've done that. And even those companies have their ebbs and flows with this issue. So that's my passion for why I feel Purpose DIY's time is now. And let me also actually describe, there are two elements to that name, right? You've touched on in your question the purpose aspect. The other aspect is the DIY. That, we're all self-leaders. That's the beauty of this world of holacracy and all the change in, open workspaces and flatter organizations and less hierarchy is really, at the end of the day, not about just empowering, but self-empowering and self-leadership. And that's really the essence of what I'm hoping Purpose DIY will provide. And I'm really keen to get feedback and input from others in our peers and people in our industry to hear what those magic ingredients would be to make this really a compelling proposition for people to do it themselves.
That's great. Question about millennials. Obviously, to me, maybe to most people, is that millennials have a lot of demands when it comes to finding their life at work. I think that it seems like that's one thing that's definitely pushing this. But there's also the factor, and I know you and I talked about this a while back, where we do say this is millennial driven. I don't think there's a lot of doubt about that. But I think something you said was, it's also human driven, right? We say, it's the millennials that are telling us we need purpose and meaning. So they need it.
Yeah.
And we, nobody else does. Of course, everyone does. Yeah. So, anyway, I just want to ask you about the millennial factor.
Yeah.
And the human factor behind looking for purpose and meaning and what that does to the workplace.
Scott, great question. So, millennials are really absolutely important. They are, as we know, statistically the largest group of employees and population already, and only growing in prominence in terms of spending power and all of that. So yes, and we know that purpose is very critical to, their reason for being. We also know that they're going to shift jobs very quickly. And that's really, I think, should be of concern to employers of retention, of firstly attracting really great candidates and then retaining them. But yeah, your point about the human aspect, we've talked about this, and just briefly for our audience, I would say it's intriguing because I laugh, sitting at the edge of, I guess I'm an older Gen X and a baby boomer, and I laugh because I'm so excited about the traits that millennials bring. I think many of us resonate with them and feel like it's a breath of fresh air. And so I'm super excited about what they're going to bring and push us, actually, to do things differently. And a big piece of that is bringing meaning to work. That, they're really not going to be satisfied with the day job, the paycheck, the 9 to 5, thank hump day on Wednesdays and thank God it's Friday. Those days are gone. I mean, we're always on. And they're going to set good boundaries in knowing when they're on their time and they're going to go have fun. And they want to have fun at work. And so does everyone else. So I think that interplay of all these generational aspects is going to be very fascinating. And if I can just shift quickly to the older generations, many of them are at that point where they're, in a later stage in their career or looking to retire. And looking at what's next, because we're fortunate to live longer now and healthier and more prosperous. What do I want to do with my life? And the whole trend of hiring a career or life coach has been really skyrocketing over the last decade, particularly with the baby boomers, right? In terms of what's next, what is the meaning of life, and what's my legacy? So I think this accomplishes both of those. Yeah, and I don't want to underscore that word legacy. I do think this is about legacy. And to me, and in many ways, I think what we're about to venture on is the hero's journey, classic Joseph Campbell. So more on that when we meet next week.
That's great. That's really great. Something else that I think is a really key point in your discussion of why address purpose is the idea that millennials are now beginning to move into managerial positions, which is obviously a key shift. This is a pivotal time, right? Because if you have, to me, if you have people who are maybe more cynical about the whole management process or the structures, suddenly they are now taking the reins. What's the net result of that, and how are we addressing that? I think that's going to become more and more of a question, and there's more and more urgency as we move along. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, it's imminent. It's already here. I hear of people talking about challenges in companies, especially in the tech space, where young individual contributors become managers of teams of 14 overnight. And they're running so fast, and the hard skills of what they actually need to accomplish are so demanding that they don't have time for these leadership skills. They don't have time to go do 2-day training workshops or even longer. and they actually don't even have time for webinars, etc. So how do you break that down into bite-sized, meaningful leadership development? And also, Scott, that audience you're describing are typically not the audience that a company is going to invest in executive coaching for, right? So what's
True.
that option to serve them in a way that's really meaningful and connects deeply with their development so that they really show up authentically? And that's another key aspect here is we know that they, exactly to your point, is they desire to be themselves and authentic. And so we're not going to have, I'm going to march the company mission anymore unless they buy into it. And it's not just simply drinking the Kool-Aid when they just jump in and it's all, the new hire orientation glow. It's when you have that dip and you realize that no place is perfect. How do you work through that?
Right.
And how do you find your personal connection with the purpose and values of a company that then you integrate with how you show up as a manager? That's the leader of the future. And today, actually, that the person who can really get real about how they integrate their personal self with their work self, because it's all one now. It's really not separate.
Wow. Big challenges, but exciting ones. And necessary. It's so necessary to meet those challenges. So let me just ask you a little bit about next week. So you'll be with us on Wednesday evening, and can you just sort of give our listeners a little bit of an idea of why it is they should come and listen to your presentation and participate in what we're going to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited and thrilled, Scott, firstly to applaud you for creating this focus group. I mean, this area of focus within ATD in Seattle. I was delighted to find you guys. So to me, it's an opportunity to gather with people who get this, right? I think anybody who's listening to this and considering coming next week are already sold on the need and the deep desire to do more with this space of purpose.
Absolutely.
So what to expect tactically next week is I'm hoping that we can create a space where I'll set some context. I'll set out some concepts that I'm looking at in terms of how PurposeDIY is becoming a bite-sized learning platform, and really open it up for feedback, because I'm at that point of really doing actual user validation. I've got a couple of clients that we're already building with, and to really see what are those features that would really make this compelling. How do we really make this so that your employees will want to adopt it? That they'll want it rather than having it pushed, like a lot of mandatory training ends up being. So how do you really make it compelling, exciting, and fun, and relevant for the business, so that we really meet a win-win-win where the CEO, your leadership, really are committed to culture change or enhancing and retaining culture if you are in a good place, and then really instilling that in a way that's practiced rather than just preached. So let's look at ways how we can build features into PurposeDIY that really make that happen. And that's, I'm really grateful for the people who are willing to come, to treat this like a focus group and an open conversation, to kind of navigate some of those concepts and things that we feel would be really compelling.
And I'm already feeling that people are going to come and they are going to be able to get some ideas and just get their adrenaline going. If sometimes it's hard to keep going, when you're out there in a more traditional work environment and you're a learning and development professional. Just getting together and hearing something like this can be very energizing, and I think people are going to be able to walk away with that, and also with some very practical things that they can bring back to the workplace with them, and maybe back to their bosses, their managers, to say, there is more urgency around this than you might imagine. And that's what I'm thinking. So I think it's going to be a good talk, and I think it's going to be worth everyone's while to come and hear Bobby Bakshi. And again, April 20th, next Wednesday, April 20th. Go to ATD Puget Sound and go to their events calendar and be sure to register, and all the details will be there, and you'll also be seeing details here on our Facebook page. So thank you, Bobby. Thank you for your time, and really looking forward to Wednesday.
Thank you, Scott. I'm really honored to be invited and look forward to meeting everybody who shows up so we can really do this together. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we hope to see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.